Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at the Birth of Merlin, or The Child Hath Found His Father, by William Rowley. Possibly with some other people. That has been mooted, but Bill is fairly well ascribed as to the primary author. And we've had the birth. It's happened. It was a good birth, I have to say. Turns out the devil is a very considerate partner when it comes to birthing a child in the early modern period. So who knew? We're going from Act 4 today. Much to our surprise, we squeezed in an extra scene last time, so we're all a little out of sync, so hopefully all of these parts will match. So reading today, the part of Gloucester and Merlin is...
Sarah Blake in Germany.
Reading Ostorius, Cador and Proximus is...
Connor Brown in London.
Reading Clown is...
Simon Nader from Dublin, not from outer space.
Reading Aurelius, Spirit and Devil is... Oh, we can't hear you. I didn't hear that. Ooh, seem to have lost the sound of Brian. I will come back to Brian and see, hopefully we will have sound. Reading Edwin and Joan is...
I'm guessing that's me. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm not from outer space. I'm not from Dublin, though I think they're the same thing. I'm not sure.
Reading Artesia, Messenger and Captain is...
Helen Good in God's own county of Yorkshire.
Reading Octa and Vortiger is...
Steve Longstaffe in God's own county of Lancashire.
Oh dear. Reading Uter and First Gent is...
Helen, neutral in Suffolk.
Reading Second Gent and Donobert is...
Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm in the northwestern United States.
And reading Edol and Hermit is...
Also waving the red rose of Lancashire, Alίκη.
And we'll just try again to see if we can hear from the Spirit, the Devil and Aurelius is...
Brian Myers in Portland, Oregon.
Yay! Sound works. I am your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions, generally keeping us moving forward. So, without further ado, we are going to dive into Act 4. War. What is it good for? Hopefully some engaging drama. Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Clown, Merlin, and a little antic spirit.
Come now, Uncle. Why do you search your pockets so? Do you miss anything?
Oh, cousin Merlin, I hope your beard does not overgrow your honesty. I pray, remember you are made up of my sister's thread. I am your mother's brother, whosoever was your father.
Why? Wherein can you task my duty, Uncle?
Yourself, or your page it must be. I have kept no other company since your mother bound your head to my protectorship. I do find a fault on one side. Either it was that sparrowhawk or a cast of Merlins, for I find a covey of Cardicus sprung out of my pocket.
Why, do you want any money, Uncle? Sirrah, had you any from him?
Deny it not, for my pockets, a witness against you.
Yes, I had to teach you better wit to look to it.
Pray, use your fingers better, and my wit may serve as it is, sir.
Well, restore it.
There it is.
Aye, there's honesty in this. 'Twas a token from your invisible father, cousin, which I would not have to go invisibly from me again.
Well, you are sure you have it now, Uncle?
Yes, and mean to keep it now from your page's filching fingers, too.
If you have it so sure, pray show it me again.
Yes, my little juggler, I dare show it. Ha! Cleanly conveyance again. You have no invisible fingers, have you? 'Tis gone, certainly.
Why, sir, I touched it not.
Why, look you, Uncle, I have it now. How ill do you look to it here? Keep it safer.
This is fine, if faith. I must keep some other company if you have these sleights of hand.
Come, come, Uncle, 'tis all my art, which shall not offend you, when I give you a taste of it to show you sport.
Oh, but 'tis ill jesting with a man's pockets, though. But I am glad to see you cunning, cousin, For now will I warrant thee a living till thou diest. You have heard the news in Wales here.
Uncle, let me prevent your care and counsel. 'Twill give you better knowledge of my cunning. You would prefer me now, in hope of gain, to Vortiger, king of the Welsh Britons, to whom are all the artists summoned now that seek the secrets of futurity. The bards, the druids, wizards, conjurers. Not an Arasper with his whistling spells, no capomancer with his musty fumes, no witch or juggler, but is thither sent to calculate the strange and feared event of his prodigious castle, now in building, where all the labours of the painful day are ruined still in the night. And to this place you would have me go?
Well, if thy mother were not my sister, I would say she was a witch that begot thee. But this is thy father, not thy mother wit. Thou hast taken my tale into thy mouth and spake my words before me. Therefore, away, shuffle thyself amongst the conjurers, and be a made man before thou comest of age.
Nay, but stay, uncle. You overslip my dangers. The prophecies and all the cunning wizards have certified the king that this his castle can never stand till the foundations laid with mortar tempered with the fatal blood of such a child whose father was no mortal.
What's this to thee? If the devil were thy father, was not thy mother born at Carmarthen? Dig on for that then. And then it must be a child's blood, and who will take thee for a child with such a beard on thy face? Is there not digging for that too, cousin?
I must not go. Lend me your ear a while. I'll give you reasons to the contrary.
I'm going to pause mid-scene because there's quite a lot of business in this scene that was quite fun. It's like, magical coin tricks. Is it behind the ear? No, it's not. Is it behind? I can see that that there's a bit of oh, we've just learned some magic tricks. Let's put it in a play, kind of quality there, which I thought was quite engaging. Though ultimately entirely cuttable because it doesn't actually add anything at all. It's just sort of set up, and then someone turns around. Oh, should we do plot? Yes, let's do some plot. You're supposed to go to the castle where you can't build the castle because of the dragons and the things and the stuff and the blood and we're probably child sacrifice, and I don't want to go. Which is not unimportant. Alan.
Yeah, we got another very well written scene there, which, like most of them, which feature the clown. Again, I suspect Rowley writing for himself rather than the general audience or the overall direction of the piece.
But again, it doesn't overstay. It's it's welcome actually. It's fairly neat, and it's not exceptionally long. And I suppose you need something rather than just them walking on stage going, "Shall I tell you the plot?" Which might be a bit much. Simon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wasn't with you live yesterday, but having read it up to this point beforehand, I'm quite impressed with the fact that it does seem to kind of go along at a bit of a fair lick. There isn't a lot of wasted exposition, and obviously, as we know, things can be well written or well transcribed and then not make the very well on stage. But I don't think there's too much waste in here, and even a scene like that is fairly superfluous, still quite entertaining and kind of well crafted.
Yeah, and it is not. I mean, it's not a short play, but it's not an excessively long play. You'd sort of expect another couple of thousand words on this, and there might be good reasons why it's slightly shorter than your average bear. But it's not. It's about it. But it is on the shorter end of the spectrum. But then I suspect that we had a magical battle earlier in the play, so and we may have some more magic coming up. So you sort of expect that there's a bit of space given in the text as well for action that is described rather than fully enacted in dialogue here. But yes, it moves quickly. I think also not only is it not a desperately long script end to end, but it is also, I think the script moves quickly. It's not one of those scripts that seems to add an extra half an hour to its own length by just simply, I need to speak slowly to get through the drama of this moment. I don't think there's anything in this script that does that. Helen.
I like the list of artists for the secrets of futurity.
Mm.
I think I know them all except the Capnomancer. I've never encountered a Capnomancer before.
I assume it's just sort of like a necromancer, but maybe with a hat. I don't know. It could also just be an element of a typo in the script, so there's always that slight worry. But no, someone's putting something from Wikipedia in the chat, so maybe they can articulate that for the room. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about capnomancy.
It's divination by examining smoke.
Or animal entrails.
Very good.
The arrow spur is entrails. I know that one.
Yeah.
Capnomancer with his musty fumes does suggest smoke, doesn't it? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
I think it's a little bit disappointing. I was hoping it was literally reanimated cats. That would have been much more fun. Better to stage.
Yeah. Capnomancy. Just you need a lot of caps to get a decent prediction out of it, though. It's Helen. You've got a few caps, so.
Yes, indeed. This is Federico Montefeltro. I'm working on at the moment.
Nice.
Love it.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Cardinal Wolsey.
Yes.
Cardinal Woolley.
Yeah.
Ah.
I apologise for this tangent, but you can tell we got slightly less text to get through today than normal. Anyway, we'll move on. We're still mid-scene. Merlin has explicated. It is that I don't want to go to this place because they kind of need to murder a child to get the builders out of the site. And to be fair, with most builders, getting them off site is quite difficult. So I think that's a serious thing. Sarah, before we go on.
Well, they don't just need to murder any child; they need to murder him.
Yeah.
Specifically,
magic child with specific parentage.
Yes. So I mean, he has a point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's move on. As we have the entrance, they've gone off to one side to have to. Let me explain this to you again, slowly, says Merlin. I think the way that the clown is not the sharpest pencil. Anyway, while they're doing that, enter two gentlemen.
Sure, this is an endless piece of work the king has sent us about.
Kings may do it, man. The like has been done to find out the unicorn.
Which will be sooner found, I think, than this fiend-begotten child we seek for.
Pox of those conjurers that we speak of such a one, and yet all their kind could not tell us where to find him.
In Wales, they say assuredly he lives. Come, let's inquire further.
Uncle, your persuasions must not prevail with me. I know mine enemies better than you do.
I say, thou'rt a bastard, then, if thou disobey thine uncle. Was not Joan, go toot, thy mother, my sister? If the devil were thy father, what kin art thou to any man alive but bailiffs and brokers? And they are but brothers-in-law to thee neither.
How's this? I think we shall speed here.
Aye, and unlooked for, too. Go near and listen to them.
Hast thou a beard to hide it? Wilt thou show thyself a child? Wilt thou have more hair than wit? Wilt thou deny thy mother because nobody knows thy father? Or shall thine uncle be an ass?
Bless ye, friend. Pray, what call you this small gentleman's name?
Small, sir. A small man may be a great gentleman. His father may be of an ancient house, for aught we know, sir.
Why, do you not know his father?
No, nor you neither, I think, unless the devil be in ye.
What is his name, sir?
His name is my cousin, sir. His education is my sister's son, but his manners are his own.
Why ask ye, gentlemen? My name is Merlin.
Yes, and Goshawk was his father, for aught we know, for I am sure his mother was a windsucker.
He has a mother, then?
As sure as I have a sister, sir.
But his father you leave doubtful.
Well, sir, as wise men as you doubt whether he had a father or no.
Sure, this is he we seek for.
I think no less. And sir, we let you know the king hath sent for you.
The more child he, and he had been ruled by me, he should have gone before he was sent for.
May we not see his mother?
Yes, and feel her too if you anger her. A devilish thing, I can tell ye, she has been. I'll go fetch her to thee.
Exit clown.
Sir, it were fit you did resolve for speed. You must unto the king.
My service, sir, shall need no strict command. It shall obey most peaceably. But 'tis needless to fetch what is brought home. My journey may be stayed. The king is coming hither with the same quest you bore before him. Hark, his drum will tell ye.
And within, drums beat a low march.
This is some cunning indeed, sir.
Flourish. Enter Vortiger, reading a letter. Proximus, with drum and soldiers and others.
Still in our eye your message, Proximus, we keep to spur our speed. Ostorius and Octa we shall salute with a succour against Prince Uter and Aurelius, whom now we hear encamps at Winchester. As nothing interrupts our way, so much as doth the erection of this fatal castle, that spite of all our art and daily labour, the night still ruins.
As erst I did affirm, still I maintain. The fiend-begotten child must be found out, whose blood gives strength to the foundation. It cannot stand else.
Enter Clown, Merlin, and Joan.
Ah, is it so? Then, Proximus, by this intelligence he should be found. Speak, is this he you tell of?
Yes, sir, and I his uncle, and she his mother.
And who's his father?
Why, she, his mother, can best tell you that. And yet I think the child be wise enough, for he has found his father.
Woman, is this thy son?
Yes, and I'm muted. Sorry, one sec. It is, my lord.
What was his father? Or where lives he?
Mother, speak freely and unastonished. That which you dare to act, dread not to name.
In which I shall betray my sin and shame. But since it must be so, then no great king in all that myself yet knows of him is this. In pride of blood and beauty did I live, though my glass the altar was, my face the idol. Such was my peevish love unto myself that I did hate all other. Such disdain was in my scornful eye that I supposed no mortal creature worthy to enjoy me. Thus with the peacock I beheld my train, but never saw the blackness of my feet. Oft have I chid the winds for breathing on me, and cursed the sun, fearing to blast my beauty. In midst of this most leprous disease, a seeming fair young man appeared to be, in all things suiting my aspiring pride, and with him brought along a conquering power to which my frailty yielded, from whose embraces this issue came. What more he is, I know not.
Some incubus or spirit of the night begot him then, for sure no mortal did it.
No matter who, my lord, leave further quest, since 'tis as hurtful as unnecessary more to inquire. Go to the cause, my lord, why you have sought me thus.
I doubt not, but thou knowest. Yet, to be plain, I sought thee for thy blood.
By whose direction?
By mine, my art infallible instructed me. Upon thy blood must the foundation rise of the king's building. It cannot stand else.
Hast thou such leisure to inquire my fate, and let thine own hang careless over thee? Knowest thou what pendulous mischief roots thy head, how fatal and how sudden?
Pish, bearded abortive, thou foretell my danger. My lord, he trifles to delay his own.
No, I yield myself, and here before the king, make good thine augury as I shall mine. If thy fate fall not, thou hast spoke all truth, and let my blood satisfy the king's desires. If thou thyself wilt write thine epitaph, dispatch it quickly. There's a minute's time betwixt thee and thy death. Aye, so thou mayest die laughing.
And a stone falls and kills Proximus.
Love it.
Above admiration. Look, is he dead?
Yes, sir. His brains to make mortar of, if you'll use them. Cousin Merlin, there is no more of this stone fruit ready to fall, is there? I pray, give your uncle a little fair warning.
Remove that shape of death. And now, my lord, for clear satisfaction of your doubts, Merlin will show the fatal cause that keeps your castle down and hinders your proceedings. Stand there, and by an apparition see the labour and end of all your destiny. Mother and uncle, you must be absent.
Is your father coming, cousin?
Nay, you must be gone.
You'll offend him, brother.
I would fain see my brother-in-law. If you were married, I might lawfully call him so.
And exit Clown and Joan. Merlin strikes his wand. Thunder and lightning. 2 dragons appear. I promised them at the beginning. I said they would be there. 2 dragons appear, a red and a white. They fight a while and pause.
What means this stay?
Be not amazed, my lord, for on the victory or loss or gain, as these 2 champions end, your fate, your life and kingdom all depend. Therefore, observe it well.
I shall. Heaven be auspicious to us.
Thunder. The 2 dragons fight again, and the white dragon drives off the red.
The conquest is on the white dragon's part. Now, Merlin, faithfully expound the meaning.
Your grace must not then be offended with me.
Is it the weakest part I found in thee to doubt of me so slightly? Shall I blame my prophet that foretells me of my dangers? Cunning I approve most excellent.
Then know, my lord, there is a dampish cave, the nightly habitation of these dragons, vaulted beneath, where you would build your castle, whose enmity and nightly combats there maintain a constant ruin of your labours. To make it more plain, the dragons then, yourself betoken, and the Saxon king. The vanquished red is, sir, your dreadful emblem.
Oh, my fate.
Nay, you must bear with patience, royal sir. You slew the lawful king, Constantius. 'Twas a red deed. Your crown, his blood did cement. The English Saxon, first brought in by you for aid against Constantius's brethren, is the white horror who, now knit together, have driven and shut you up in these wild mountains. And though they now seek to unite with friendship, it is to wound your bosom, not embrace it, and with an utter extirpation to root the Britons out and plant the English, seek for your safety, sir, and spend no time to build the airy castles, for Prince Uter, armed with vengeance for his brother's blood, is hard upon you. If you mistrust me, and to my words crave witness, sir, then know, here comes a messenger to tell you so.
Exit Merlin. Enter messenger.
My lord, Prince Uter.
And who else, sir?
Edol, the great general.
The great devil. They're coming to meet us?
With full power, my lord.
With a full vengeance. They mean to meet us. So we are ready to their confront at full march, double footing. We'll lose no ground, nor shall their numbers fright us. If it be fate, it cannot be withstood. We got our crown so, be it lost in blood.
And they exit. Yeah, don't mess with Merlin, otherwise a stone will hit you on the head. Nearly had that ready.
No, he didn't. He didn't. He foretold it.
I know.
He didn't cause it. I mean, there's a big difference. Merlin is a prophet, not an enchanter, so much.
But he could have just said, don't stand there. Have you considered taking a step to the left? Sorry, through inaction, he has allowed this thing to happen. Therefore, in real terms, he caused it. I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, I deny your major.
He was talking about it happening. He only had to tell him to push him. Though, to be fair, Proximus deserved it, so it's fine. But, you know. Step to the left. Thoughts in the room. We got our dragon fight, and again, I was talking about the length of the script. We have these little gaps in place, I think, in terms of its length, to fit in these moments of spectacle, and extend it. And it is a thing. This is part of the story. These two dragons, they are a thing. So that it's not just coming out of the playwright's brain. It is an element of the story. I'll go to Lynn, then Simon.
I just have had a lot of fun already today. You know, we've got the sleight of hand with the coin and then Merlin's like, they're gonna try to kill me, don't. And then you're gonna die, like soon, really soon. Oh, nonsense. I guess I'm a terrible person. And then dragons. I mean, but this is just pure entertainment. Pure entertainment.
Simon.
Well, is it just pure entertainment? Because I might be informed. I might be informed by our Yorkish Lancastrian dialogue pre-show, but I wondered if we were very significant with the red and the white dragons there, especially with Tudors hiding from Carmarthen, of course, and then putting the dragon, of course, on the flag. So I wondered how intentional that might be.
Yes, does that feed into other things? Just on a practical stage level, how do you do the rock falling on his head? How big is the rock? Is it a giant sort of, like an animated giant lead weight thing that just falls encapsulated? It has a sort of Monty Python giant foot quality to it.
It does.
Or is it just a pile of, what is the nature of the rock, and how do you manage to make sure it hits him without injuring him? Answers on a postcard. You don't have to answer it now. Helen, I think, was waving, then Aliki.
Yes, I was quite pleased that we've got a lot more information about what Merlin looks like. You're absolutely right. It's obviously a child actor with a beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are beard experts out there, but we will defer to that for another day. Aliki, and then Stephen.
I was going to say, as far as I know, the red and white dragon predates the Wars of the Roses and is part of the legend, wherever it comes from, Geoffrey of Monmouth or somebody. It's the red dragon for Wales, anyway. It's not for Lancaster.
Yeah, I only mentioned that because I was watching something the other day that apparently Henry VII put it on the flag to this day, which I had no idea of, which was intriguing.
I don't know the precise on that. I'm sure we will. Someone will fill that in. Stephen, then Helen, and then Eric.
Brian.
Just wondering about the dragons, because I think I remember Henslow's kind of properties listed a dragon for Faustus. And I recently read something which suggested that was a kind of head that was thrust up through the trap rather than a kind of full working dragon. And I'm wondering if there might be that this might not be, fills the stage with dragons sort of moment. When I've seen sort of stagings of The Hobbit and the like, the dragon, you can't really do very convincing dragons, I think, very, very easily. And the bigger they are, the less, the more cumbersome they are. So I'm just wondering at this moment where we might have gone into kind of split screen or something, and we could have had dragons coming out of the trap. Or out of the heavens, for that matter, I guess. But the trap would be easier to actually have a fight.
Yeah, all sorts of questions of how far you push that. Eric.
I think Helen wanted to say something. Then I think Brian wanted
Helen,
to say
Eric,
something,
yes.
and then me.
Yes, Brian was also waving. Yeah, one of the things that I noted was that the English are bad and the Britons are good in this. There's a little reference to it. I mean, I'm not saying the English are totally bad, but it's Britons versus English. And this ties in very much with the Jacobean project of Britain, which you get all over the plays of this time. It was deeply unpopular in Scotland, deeply unpopular in England, but the king liked it.
I did not know that. I knew that unification was a passion of James's, but I didn't know that there was that much opposition to it.
Oh, everyone loathed it. I mean, it was deeply unsuccessful, and certainly by 1622, it's been kicked to the long grass. Anyway, Brian and then Eric.
Yeah, first, thank you, Helen, for that bit. I did not know that either. I just wanted to surface something that came up in discussion in the meeting chat. Just allow a raise for comment. Something's happened to Joan. This is not the same character we had. She has a different diction and a very different point of view,
and speaks in verse, which she never did before.
Yeah, it's like she's been educated by her son or something, you know. Because there's a long intervening gap, or a reasonably intervening gap here between when we first encountered Joan and now. And yeah, she was comedy character, and she's not really a comedy character here at all. Yeah, very different voice. Actor has to do some work to reconcile that.
Audience too.
Yeah. I'll go to Eric, then Lynn, then Aliki, then we will move on.
I'm just impressed that you can keep track. Also, what was I going to say? I kind of like pictured this scene, and maybe I don't know before that, because I did miss the middle part of stuff. I kind of picture this like Monty Python's Holy Grail, where you have like a tiny rabbit and a tiny dragon. Either that or like the entire really problematic but hilarious French castle in the middle of nowhere scene, with like throwing cows at each other and stuff. It just kind of seemed a bit like you could have moved, or even just like sort of trying to cross the bridge in that particular film, where you have to answer a riddle, like what's your favorite color? You took too long, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I feel like it could be played full comedy with really good props, but not necessarily. I mean, like sort of papier-mâché / half animatronics, maybe not necessarily with modern technology, just because it would be fun.
Or just little glove puppets, just very, very small dragons. No, okay. Lynn and Aliki.
I think if I were directing this, I would, with Joan's sort of shift in character or shift in way of talking, I would be tempted to make it not Joan talking. She's like possessed. She's channeling something that's some kind of otherworldly spirit. That long passage of verse is not really her talking. That's something Merlin like does that to her. And although I know he's not an enchanter, he's a prophet. But yeah, that's not Joan talking.
Aliki.
I was just going to make some sort of dirty joke about the Satan's sexual prowess and how Joan's seen the light. But I think you could make it into a Merlin thing, because yesterday we had a scene where she was scolding him for reading too much. So if we can have him sort of zap her at that point, even though he's not a magician. I mean, he kind of is in everybody's mind anyway. And that would do it. That would stop her giving him a hard time about his reading, because now she's a scholar too, or something.
I don't think we need to fix too much a definite limitation on Merlin's powers. I think he clearly can do a lot of stuff. So let's. Though of course that takes any jeopardy out of the situation.
Also, fighting kite dragons.
Ooh.
That's what I want.
Okay. Right. Well, let's get a little more data as we go further into Act 4, Scene 2. Enter Prince Uter, Edol, Cador, Edwin, Tocleo. Does Tocleo say anything? I don't think I've got anyone down for him. And soldiers with drum.
Stand advised. Hold drum.
Wait, slave! Why do you pause? Why make a stand? Where are our enemies, or do you mean we fight amongst ourselves?
Nay, noble Edol, let us here take counsel. It cannot hurt. It's the surest garrison to safety.
Aye, on such slow delays. So fearful men that are to pass over a flowing river stand on the bank to parley of the danger till the tide rise, and they be swallowed. Is not the king in field?
Proud Vortiger, the traitor is in field.
The murderer and usurper.
Let him be the devil, so I may fight with him. For heaven's love, sir, march on. Oh, my patience. Will you delay until the Saxons come to aid his party?
Tuck it.
There's no such fear. Will he be calm a while? Hark. It seems by this he comes or sends to us.
Oh, if it be for parley, I'll drown the summons, if all our drums and hoarseness choke me not.
And enter a captain.
Nay, prithee here. From whence art thou?
From King Vortiger.
Traitor! There's none such. Alarum, drum, strike, slave, or by mine honour I'll break thy head and beat thy drumsticks both about thine ears.
Oh, noble Edel, let's hear what articles he can enforce.
What articles or what conditions can you expect to value half your wrong? Must he kill himself by 1,000 tortures and send his carcass to appease your vengeance for the foul murder of Constantius? And that's not the 10th part, neither.
'Tis true. My brother's blood is crying to me now. I do applaud thy counsel. Hence, begone!
And exit captain.
We'll hear no parley now, but by our swords.
And thou shalt speak home in death-killing words. Alarum to the fight! Sound! Sound the alarum!
Exeunt alarum. Trumpets, drums, whatever. Re-enter Edol, driving all of Vortiger's forces before him. Off you go, Edol. Drive them away. There we go. And then exit. Just briefly pause there. But again, business. We should give it a little time. Give it a little bit of that. I continue to really like Edol. I just love the way Edol just goes, we're going to stop and just talk about what we're going to do next. We're just going to kill him. What do we need to talk about? It's really... yeah, there's no...
Yeah.
I wouldn't put Edol ever on a team to do flower arranging or anything because it just wouldn't go well. Lynn.
No, yeah, I was good. Edol, yeah. Now there's a character who's very consistent. Like, we're just talking about Joan. Is Joan the same person? Yeah, he's just always spoiling for a fight. It's just, yeah. I find him highly entertaining, actually.
I did push against the other day. I did push against the Brian Blessed suggestion, but I am increasingly agreeing with that. On the there really isn't much else to Edol, is there? Except for can we kill people yet? Which is
I succumbed to it myself. Sorry,
I'm not sure there's anywhere else to go with it, is there? So yeah, but it's fun. I like it. Helen.
Yeah, the part of the captain, there's a lot of subtext there.
Oh, do tell.
Well, I mean, the poor fellow, he's constantly about to speak when suddenly it's inappropriate because someone else is shouting at him, and then it's hence begone, and he's only managed 4 words.
Yes, that is true, isn't it? It's like I'm from the thing. Edol explodes, and Uter says, "Shush! Now let's listen to the person." And then it's immediately, "No, I'm not going to listen." Let's...
Yeah, I mean, I feel the captain addresses himself to speak.
Yeah,
a number of times.
Yes, I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. Other thoughts on that little scenette? No. Okay, let us gather a little bit more. Act 4, Scene 3. Enter Prince Uther pursuing Vortiger.
Dost follow me?
Yes, to thy death I will.
Stay. Be advised. I would not be the only fall of princes. I slew thy brother.
Thou didst, black traitor, and in that vengeance I pursue thee.
Take mercy for thyself and fly my sword. Save thine own life for satisfaction, which here I give thee for thy brother's death.
Give what's thine own, a traitor's heart and head. That's all thou art right lord of. The kingdom which thou usurpedst was most unhappy. Thou most unhappy tyrant is leaving thee. The Saxons which thou broughtest to back thy usurpations are grown great, and where they seat themselves, do hourly seek to blot the records of old brute and Britons from memory of man, calling themselves Hengest men and Hengest land. That no more the Briton name be known. All this by thee, thou base destroyer of thy native country.
Enter Edol.
What? Stand ye talking?
And fights.
Hold Edol.
Hold out my sword and listen not to king or prince's word. There's work enough abroad. This task is mine.
Trumpets, drums, etc. for an alarum.
Prosper thy valour as thy virtues shine.
And they exit. Edol there. Just going, are you talking again?
Enough killing.
Okay, I just want to check something. At the end of the last session, did anyone notice Aurelius dying?
No.
No, I was going to say something about that, but
he seems to be dead.
Is Aurelius dead, or was there?
I think there's a third brother. Isn't it Constantine the third brother?
Yeah. Okay.
Died. I think he's the one that was killed.
Yeah, there was a third brother, an older brother.
Constantius.
But that's different, isn't it? Sorry.
No, it's Constantia. We haven't had a Constantius.
No, there was a reference to a Constantius.
Yeah, they keep on mentioning him.
Yeah.
It was Sarah's line. She's
Yeah, he was mentioned as having been the rightful king and being killed by I want to say Proximus, but I'm not sure.
He's killed. He was murdered by Vortiger, apparently.
Yes.
At some point.
Yeah, and sent his carcass to pay your vengeance for the foul murder of Constantius.
Mm. I don't recall any of that coming up earlier.
Keeps on being referred to.
Yeah, twice at least. I think.
You slew the lawful king. Yes, you did. Constantius. Yeah, foul murder of Constantius. Again, it's just like something they all mention, but of course it doesn't sort of stick because it's not something we ever saw or engaged with.
You need a family tree in the program.
Yeah, but it is literally mentioned 3 times in the last 5 minutes. That's it. It's nowhere else in the play.
Yeah.
It's literally that name as only appears 3 times in the play. I've just quickly searched through. So it's like it's come up now, and it's never been referenced explicitly. Simon.
Does anyone know how complete the text is then? Could we be missing some action?
We might. Who knows? It's a good question. I don't have an answer for you on that. This is evidence that maybe there's something not quite right there. But yeah, does anyone know the fate of the king, though? Is there fighting on his own behalf, or is he fighting for his brother at this point?
Well, you cast him, so presumably he's
I cast
still
him
alive.
for yesterday. I don't know if I cast him for today.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't know if he turns up later. Lynn and then Sarah.
It is weird. It's we have a little late onset plot, but this isn't Middleton. It's Rowley. What's going on? it would have been easy enough to mention in one of the earlier scenes, oh yes, Aurelius he's young, but he's wise, which turns out that he's not. But they could have mentioned in there that he inherited the throne from his brother, not his father, who was killed. I mean, you could, like, 2 or 3 lines of dialogue could have fixed this. So it's very odd that that we're just now finding out that there was a Constantius. I'm also a little confused about Uter. I mean, last time we talked, he was trying to have an affair with his brother's wife, and now he's all like, I'm defending my brother. Am I the only one who finds his motivations opaque?
Well, there was an element there. There were a few asides saying maybe this is a trap, and so maybe he went in knowing that he wasn't going to sleep with her. It was all just to find out how evil she was. But it is a little paper thin in the sense of I think he was sorely tempted. Sarah, then Alan.
No, I was just going to raise the whole, if he is fighting for his brother, that's really confusing, because last time we saw them together, his brother was ordering him out. And so I get that he's joined forces with Edol. That makes perfect sense. But why would he be doing it for Aurelius's sake? But then if Aurelius is dead, then he's next to inherit anyway, presumably. So he's doing it for himself. Fine.
I mean, all the nobles.
He was in the room. He does denounce Artesia, and then they go off to fight. So he is there is reason. He is part of that scene when they all agree to go and attack the invading Saxons. So it's not that weird. It's just he didn't really say anything at that point in that scene. He sort of just went, "She's a witch," and then said nothing else. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I'm not too fussed about the discontinuities within the plotting, because the way certainly the second half of this play is going, an awful lot of it is about special effects and spectacle. You know, dragons, armies, fighties, Edol going totally OTT. And I think, quite honestly, for most audiences, they wouldn't even spot the discontinuities.
Oh, in a sense, I don't think it's a discontinuity. I think that all it is that they've tried to give Vortiger a motivation for and a motivation for people to not like Vortiger. So they have Merlin mention Constantius and Vortiger killed him, so that when they meet him in battle, they can say, "You killed my brother." It's not a discontinuity. It's just a very late onset throw-in in that sense. Helen, then Eric.
Yeah, not quite so much. Act 3, Scene 6. Aurelius says, "Go hence, false men, join you with Vortiger, the murderer of our brother Constantine."
It didn't come up in a word search.
No, because you put in Constantius and it's Constantine.
Oh, I see. So it was 10 minutes earlier rather than 5.
Oh, have it your own way.
Still in the second half of our production.
Well, there may be earlier mentions. That's just the first.
Yeah, I will have a little
search
search now. I'll just do constant. Eric.
Well, also, Aurelius is mentioned in the previous scene, the first scene we read. Vortiger says, he says stuff to Proximus and goes like, "And Octa we shall salute with succor against Prince Uter and Aurelius, whom we hear encamps at Winchester." And then Merlin and Clown and Joan enter, so it's kind of... Yeah.
Anyway, we will... it's very much only in this second half. The rest of it's Constantia, who's a very different person. And okay, that's going to get confusing later on. Anyway, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Let's move on and gather some more data. So I've just noticed something else. Act 4, Scene 4, did we get to there? Yes, we did. Enter Cador and Edwin.
Bright victory herself fights on our part, and butt-led in a golden beaver rides triumphantly before us.
Justice is with her. Whoever takes the true and rightful cause, let us not lag behind them.
Enter Prince Uter.
Here comes the prince. How go our fortunes, sir?
Hopeful and fair, brave Cador. Proud Vortiger, beat down by Edol's sword, was rescued by the following multitudes, and now, for safety's sake, fled unto a castle, here standing on the hill. But I have sent a cry of hounds as violent as hunger to break his stony walls. Or, if they fail, we'll send in wildfire to dislodge him thence, or burn them all with flaming violence.
And exeunt. Short scene, and remember, these are all scenes overlapping each other. They're running into each other at pace. We sort of get a bit of exposition, presumably to help cover any dumb show action that's going on here about the fight itself. But they might send in wildfire. I'm assuming a cry of hounds is not literal. I think that's just his army. But I quite like the idea of a mass invasion of beagles or something. I think that would be not entirely appropriate for this play. Any brief thoughts on this at this time? It's a brief scene. Let us move on. Act 4, Scene 5. A blazing star appears. There is a flourish of trumpets. Enter Prince Uter, Edol, Cador, Edwin, Tocleo, and soldiers with drum.
Look, Edol, still this fiery exhalation shoots his frightful horrors on the amazed world. See, in the beam that bout his flaming ring, a dragon's head appears, from out whose mouth 2 flaming lakes of fire stretch east and west.
See from forth the body of the star 7 smaller blazing streams directly point on this affrighted kingdom.
'Tis a dreadful meteor.
And doth portend strange fears.
This is no crown of peace. This angry fire has something more to burn than Vortiger. If it alone were pointed at his fall, it would pull in his blazing pyramids and be appeased. For Vortiger is dead.
These never come without their large effects.
The will of heaven be done. Our sorrow's this. We want a mystic python to expound this fiery oracle.
Oh, no, my lord. You have the best that ever Britain bred. And durst I prophesy of your prophet, sir, none like him shall succeed him.
You mean Merlin?
True, sir. Wondrous Merlin. He met us in the way and did foretell the fortunes of this day successful to us.
He's sure about the camp. Send for him, sir.
He told the bloody Vortiger his fate, and truly too. And if I could give faith to any wizard's skill, it should be Merlin's.
And enter Merlin and Clown.
And see, my lord, as if to satisfy your highness's pleasure, Merlin is come.
See, the comet's in his eye. Disturb him not.
With what a piercing judgment he beholds it.
Whither will heaven and fate translate this kingdom? What revolutions, rise and fall of nations is figured yonder in that star that sings the change of Britain's state and death of kings. He's dead already. How swiftly mischief creeps. Thy fatal end, sweet prince, e'en Merlin weeps.
He does foresee some evil. His action shows it. But ere he does expound, he weeps the story.
There's another weeps too. Sirrah, do you understand what thou lamentest for?
No, sir. I am his uncle and weep because my cousin weeps. Flesh and blood cannot forbear.
Gentle Merlin, speak thy prophetic knowledge in explanation of this fiery horror, by which we gather from thy mournful tears much sorrow and disaster in it.
'Tis true, fair prince, but you must hear the rest with patience.
I vow I will, though it portend my ruin.
There's no such fear. This brought the fiery fall of Vortiger, and yet not him alone. This day is fallen a king more good, the glory of our land, the mild and gentle, sweet Aurelius.
Our brother?
Forfended heaven!
He at his palace royal, sir, at Winchester this day, is dead and poisoned.
By whom? Or by what means, Merlin?
By the traitorous Saxons.
I ever feared as much. That devil Ostorius and that damned witch Artesia sure have done it.
Poisoned? Oh, look further, gentle Merlin. Behold the star again, and do but find revenge for me, though it cost 1,000 lives, and mine the foremost.
Comfort yourself. The heavens have given it fully. All the portentous ills to you are told. Now hear a happy story, sir, from me to you and to your fair posterity.
Methinks I see something like a peeled onion. It makes me weep again.
Be silent, uncle. You'll be forced else.
Can you not find in the star, cousin, whether I can hold my tongue or no?
Yes, I must cut it out.
You speak without books. My cousin Merlin knows.
True, I must tie it up. Now, speak your pleasure, uncle. So. Now observe, my lord, and there behold above yon flame-head beam that upward shoots, appears a dragon's head, out of whose mouth two streaming lights point their flame-feathered darts contrary ways, yet both shall have their aims. Again behold, from the igniferous body 7 splendent and illustrious rays are spread, all speaking heralds to this Britain isle. And thus they are expounded. The dragon's head is the hieroglyphic that figures out your prince's self that here must reign as king. Those biformed fires that from the dragon's mouth shoot east and west, emblem 2 royal babes, which shall proceed from you a son and daughter. Her pointed constellation northwest tending crowns her a queen in Ireland, of whom first springs that kingdom's title to the Britain's kings. But of your son, thus fate and Merlin tells. All after times shall fill their chronicles with fame of his renown, whose warlike sword shall pass through fertile France and Germany, nor shall his conquering foot be forced to stand till Rome's imperial wreath hath crowned his fame with monarch of the West, from whose 7 hills with conquest and contributory kings he back returns to enlarge the Britain bounds, his heraldry adorned with 13 crowns. He to the world shall add another worthy, and as a lodestone for his prowess draw a train of martial lovers to his court, it shall be then the best of knighthood's honour. At Winchester to fill his castle hall, and at his royal table sit and feast in warlike orders, all their arms round hurled, as if they meant to circumscribe the world.
He touches the clown's mouth with his wand.
In the middle of that line, surely. Oh, I can speak a little.
I know your mind, uncle. Again be silent.
Strikes him again.
What speaks of wonders, Merlin? Prithee, go on. Declare at full this constellation.
Those 7 beams pointing downwards, sir, betoken the troubles of this land, which then shall meet with other fate. War and dissension strive to make division, till 7 kings agree to draw this kingdom to a heptarchy.
Thine art hath made such proof that we believe thy words authentical. Be ever near us, my prophet and the guide of all my actions.
My service shall be faithful to your person, and all my studies for my country's safety. Come, you are released, sir.
Cousin, pray help me to my tongue again. You do not mean I shall be dumb still, I hope.
Why, hast thou not thy tongue?
Yes, I feel it now. I was so long dumb, I could not tell whether I spake or no.
Is thy advice we must pursue the bloody Saxons that have slain my brother?
With your best speed, my lord. Prosperity will keep you company.
Take then your title with you, royal prince. 'Twill add on to our strength. Long live King Uter,
put the addition to that heaven hath given you. The dragon is your emblem. Bear it bravely, and so long live and over-happy styled Uter Pendragon, lawful king of Britain.
Thanks, Edol. We have raised the name and title, and in our shield and standard shall the figure of a red dragon still be born before us to fright the bloody Saxons. Oh, my Aurelius, sweet rest thy soul. Let thy disturbed spirit expect revenge. Think what it would. It hath the dragon's coming in his fiery wrath.
And they exit end of Act 4. So what I really like about this as a sequence is you've got Merlin prophesying, and it's a bit, and in the future things will happen, and yet you have it nicely undermined by the clown who's been Jedi mind tricked into not being able to speak and just going, which I thought Simon did very well. I don't know how well it mixed with Zoom, but I think it's really nice because it breaks up what could be a very tedious sequence. Because it's saying, well, the Saxons will win eventually. It'll just take them a while, but the following dynasties will be really successful in other ways, and it'll be fine. So yeah, but also the king's dead. King's definitely dead. He was poisoned off stage. I don't know who his doubling is, but he's obviously doubling as something later on. Brian, were you waving? No. Thoughts in the room? Simon?
Just now we've established that it's obviously not then a missing text. That's choice. That's just clumsy because we were so invested in him at the beginning, and then just to hear he's just been poisoned is kind of sad.
I do wonder who he's, what is the actor
It must
doing?
be a double. Must be, yeah.
Must be a double reason. It's usually the clown who disappears towards the end of the play, not the king. Is he playing his own enemy? That's a good point. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I think Helen's got a good shout there. Helen.
Yeah, can we talk a bit about dragons and whales and Arthurian legends?
Yes.
We've got Henry VII, obviously, big Wales fan. Lots of Welsh interest. Called his eldest son Arthur, and there was a sudden flurry which lasted for quite some time of people with Arthurian names. I mean, there were Lancelots everywhere. We think it's odd when we see that, there's a local pirate from Cleethorpes called Lancelot Greenwell. But in fact, Lancelot became a remarkably common name, and you get Tristrams and Percivals as well. So it starts with Henry VII, but by this time, there's an awful lot of Arthurian legend about.
And there's a lot more on the stage happening as well. We just don't have the plays surviving. We know of other Arthurian plays. It's sort of weird that there's only really a handful of texts that sort of dance around. But we know of names of plenty of other Arthurian plays. So it was a popular thing happening on stage during the period as well. So it's, as well as in literature and just in wider culture. I'm sure there'll be lots of ballads and things bouncing around that subject too. So it is part of the culture. So in a sense, an audience will be knowing a lot of this stuff in some variation. As to a degree, people today, I don't know how steeped we are in Arthur beyond a few films in the way that maybe previous generations might have been a bit more. But it ebbs and flows. He doesn't disappear. Who here goes beyond The Sword in the Stone and a few books, book series. Simon, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, what Helen said. This is why I kind of brought up the War of the Roses earlier, because you could see if there was this English versus Britain's idea. Now it's a bit of a stretch, of course, but Plantagenets, maybe that bloodline, etc., maybe being seen as the foreigners, whereas of course every bit the Tudors would have been as well. But I wonder if there's some sort of this is a parallel. Then this is why this Arthurian legend, because one is seen as being an authentic, more British brand than a Norman brand, or there's something in that, maybe, I think.
We need, however, to move further and finish Act 5. There are 2 scenes to do in Act 5, and we're going to find out some more stuff, and we're going to find out more about Joan, is Joan's transition in this part of the text. Is it going to continue, or are we going to go back to Joan Mark 1, or are we going to stick with Joan Mark 2? We shall find out in just a second. Act 5, Scene 1, Thunder. Then music. You're on your own. Enter Joan, fearful, the devil following her.
Once, thou black horror, is thy lustful fire kindled again? Not thy loud-throated thunder, nor thy adulterate infernal music shall bewitch me more. Oh, too much is past already.
Why dost thou fly me? I come a lover to thee, to embrace and gently twine thy body in mine arms.
Out, thou hellhound!
What hound soe'er I be, fawning and sporting as I would with thee, why should I not be stroked and played withal? Wilt thou not thank the lion might devour thee, if he shall let thee pass?
Yes, thou art he. Free me, and I'll thank thee.
Why, whither wouldst I am at home with thee, thou art mine own. Have we not charge of family together? Where is your son?
Oh, darkness, cover me.
There is a pride which thou hast won by me. Thy mother of a fame shall never die. Kings shall have need of written chronicles to keep their names alive, but Merlin, none. Ages to ages shall, like Sabalists, report the wonders of his name and glory, while there are tongues and times to tell his story.
Oh, rot my memory before my flesh. Let him be called some hell or earth-born monster that ne'er had hapless woman for a mother. Sweet death, deliver me hence from my sight. Why shouldst thou now appear? I had no pride nor lustful thought about me to conjure and call thee to my ruin, when, as at first, thy cursed person became visible.
I am the same I was.
But I am changed.
Again I'll change thee to the same thou wert. Quench to my lust. Come forth, by thunder led, my coadjutors in the spoils of mortals.
And thunder, enter spirits.
Clasp in your ebon arms that prize of mine, mount her as high as pallid Hecate, and on this rock I'll stand to cast up fumes and darkness o'er the bare-faced firmament. From Britain and from Merlin I'll remove her. They ne'er shall meet again.
Help me, some saving hand. If not too late, I cry, let mercy come.
Enter Merlin.
Stay, you black slaves of night. Let loose your hold. Set her down safe, or by the infernal sticks, I'll bind you up with exorcism so strong that all the black pentagoron of hell shall ne'er release you. Save yourselves and banish.
Exuent spirits.
What is he?
The child has found his father. Do you not know me?
Merlin.
Oh, help me, gentle son.
Fear not, they shall not hurt you.
Released thou her to disobey thy father?
Obedience is no lesson in your school. Nature and kind to her commands my duty. The part that you begot was against kind. So all I owe to you is to be unkind.
I'll blast thee, slave, to death, and on this rock stick thee as an eternal monument.
Thy power's too weak. What? Art thou devil? What art thou, devil, but an inferior, lustful incubus, taking advantage of the wanton flesh, wherewith thou dost beguile the ignorant? Put off the form of thy humanity, and crawl upon thy speckled belly, serpent, or I'll unclasp the jaws of Acheron and fix thee ever in the local fire.
Freitas a hell! Curse that I e'er begot thee!
Thou didst beget thy scourge. Storm not, nor stir. The power of Merlin's art is all confirmed in the fates' decretals. I'll ransack hell and make thy masters bow unto my spells. Thou first shalt taste it.
Thunder and lightning in the rock, as Merlin conjures in Latin.
Oh, and yes, Merlin conjures in Latin. Do you really want me to read all of that?
No, I'm not. It's fine. The rock
Fantastic.
encloses the devil.
So, there beget earthquakes or noisome damps, for never shalt thou touch a woman more. How cheer you, mother?
Oh, now my son is my deliverer, yet I must name him with my deepest sorrow.
And alarum afar off.
Take comfort now. Past times are ne'er recalled. I did foresee your mischief and prevent it. Hark, how the sounds of war now call me hence to aid Pendragon, that in battle stands against the Saxons, from whose aid Merlin must not be absent. Leave this soil, and I'll conduct you to a place retired, which I by art have raised, called Merlin's Bower. There shall you dwell with solitary sighs, with groans and passions your companions, to weep away this flesh you have offended with, and leave all bare unto your aerial soul. And when you die, I will erect a monument upon the verdant plains of Salisbury. No king shall have so high a sepulchre, with pendulous stones that I will hang by art, where neither lime nor mortar shall be used, a dark enigma to the memory, for none shall have the power to number them. A place that I will hallow for your rest, where no night hag shall walk, nor werewolf tread, where Merlin's mother shall be sepulchred.
And exit. So, Stonehenge is the tomb of Merlin's mother. Having praised the devil for all his good works in the first half of the play, it was really nice. Very supportive as a parent. Great during the birth. Turns out is a horrific sex pest. Comes for her, and then Merlin saves her. He saves her literally by casting the demon into a rock, but then he sort of gets a bit saving her kind of bit at the end, and which was a little disappointing. But hey, what can we say? Lynn, then Simon.
Yeah, it's this play's gotten a little serious. I feel like the tone that we were talking about in the first two sessions, where it's this sort of over the emotions are all over the top and everyone was very adolescent. We talked about that in the first session, and I don't know, it's just like there's a kind of lightness and silliness that seems to have evaporated in this last third of the play, and like the seam is really showing.
Yeah, it's something I mentioned yesterday was the question of, as we get towards the end of the play, people are going to have to start killing each other. And the problem with killing each other is it's quite sad when the whole thing has been relatively light. And that's probably why Aurelius was killed off stage, is to blunt that impact and not to have on-stage combat with Vortiger, who again is sort of just quietly disposed of. We're having spectacle, and the clown is there to undermine the portentousness of other things, and this is again all spectacle. But I don't think we can get away from the fact that the text itself is doing a slightly different thing. It does seem to be different. But it is still trying to have its cake and eat it, I think. Whether it's successfully doing that or not is an interesting question. Simon, then Eric, then Brian.
Well, two things. Firstly, how many awful, senseless passages of Latin have I had to wade through over the years and murder, and Sarah gets a pass? Deeply unimpressed. And point two, seriously. Actually, no, that was my serious point. No, point two, seriously. It's an interesting thing that we've got the devil being the father, because it's good from evil, quite literally, and obviously the act of rape being evil as well. It's weird that it's good in a weird way that you have Merlin saying that because of this I will be good, which is, I think, a little interesting point.
Yes, as I think I said the last couple of sessions, you know, there is this sort of problem of trying to reconcile where Merlin comes from. The semi-magical being within a Christian universe has always been a bit of a problem that some people have struggled with. Some people denounce it, and some people denounce other things, and there's apparently a lot of dancing around on that.
Is it a good versus good will triumph over evil thing? I wonder, quite literally in this. As don't know. It's interesting.
Brian, then Eric, or was it the other way around? I'll go to Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say it's hard to surprise the audience in a history play. And one way you can do it, I guess, is in the clown subplot, where things that are not necessarily in the chronicles themselves get to happen. And maybe that's what's going. I mean, maybe that's one reason we take a turn here. Clearly, in retrospect, although I don't know that this is clear to the audience, the Joan's personality transition is motivated in a way that we only now can understand. That is, presumably she's responding to what's happened to what the devil has become to her. And it just seems oddly ironic in a way that I don't know that the play, it might be a modern sensibility thing. I don't know. Not sure the play is aware of this, but it's odd that the clown subplot comes to have the emotional weight in the end of the play. That it started as funny, really well-written comedy, and somehow it here brings in a real moment of fear where something honestly bad that affects us emotionally in the audience could happen or has been happening. And I didn't expect from the beginning of this play to get to this point. And we explicitly said earlier on that the play lacked heft and seemed thin, that the history went by very quickly, and the stakes were present and clear, but not weighty. And some of that seems to have appeared at the end in a metastasized form.
Yes, because Joan's sort of end here is sort of one of again, a bit like the subplot that disappeared of Modestia, of effectively quiet contemplation go away and become a monument, which is not perhaps where we thought Joan was going to go at all. Eric.
I was just going to be sort of, well, I don't know, pedantic, is that the right word? Because Merlin uses all the sort of classical Greek references, Styx, Acheron, all that. So basically it's bad fighting against bad in this, as in the pagans infighting, if you want to look at it that way, which is sort of interesting. Also, we got the title of the play again, for the millionth time. I don't know what to think of this scene. It's just kind of, yeah. Also, yes. I do like how it's a shout to, like Salisbury. Later on, Salisbury Cathedral becomes like pretty big in terms of power and significance. I mean, I know that like Salisbury is kind of important as well because of Stonehenge, but no king shall have so high a sepulchre is like pretty like no king except God, obviously. Maybe. I don't know. Depends how you read it.
God isn't dead.
This is true.
Sorry to point that out.
Yes. Helen, briefly before we move into the final scene.
Right. Two things. One, I want to associate myself with your criticism of you. I remember having to read half a play in German, a language I am totally unfamiliar with. The second is, I don't know if anybody noticed that Joan supports our theories and says firmly to the devil, I am changed. So, yeah, not only is she a different person, she knows it. I thought that there was an element of Christ and the Virgin Mary in this, in that she gave birth to her Saviour. There's a very religious stuff.
Yes, and again, just a note back to that subplot that disappeared in the first half of the play of Modestia and Constantia, who have this discussion about religion.
But that's going to be resolved in the next scene, isn't it?
No.
Oh, spoilers.
It's not a spoiler because nobody's been cast as either of the parts. I've already pre-spoiled it by saying who's reading this session. There is no resolution for that plot line. It ended in Act 2, 3. It's just very odd. We'll discuss that later. Act 5, Scene 2. Enter Donobert Gloucester. Haven't seen him for a while. And Hermit.
Sincerely, Gloucester, I have told you all. My daughters are both vowed to single life, and this day gone unto a nunnery. Though I begot them to another end, and fairly promised them in marriage, one to Earl Cador and the other to your son, my worthy friend the Earl of Gloucester. Those lost, I am lost. They are lost, all's lost. Answer me this, then. Is it sin to marry?
Oh, no, my lord.
Go to, then. I will go no further with you. I persuade you to no ill. Persuade you, then, that I persuade you well.
Will be a good office in you, sir.
And after that little nod to the plot from earlier, enter Cador and Edwin to presumably move us back to the A plot.
Which since they thus neglect, my memory shall lose them, now, forever. See, the noble lords, their promised husbands, had fate so pleased, you might have called me father.
Those hopes are past, my lord. Even for this minute, we saw them both enter the monastery, secluded from the world and men forever.
'Tis both our griefs, we cannot, sir. But from the king take you the time drawing from us. The Saxon king, Ostorius slain, and Octa fled. The woman Fury, Queen Artesia, is fast in hold, and forced to redeliver London and Winchester, which she had fortified to princely Uter, lately styled Pendragon, who now triumphantly is marching hither to invest with the Britain crown.
This joy shall banish from my breast all thought that I was father of two children, two stubborn daughters that have left me thus. Let my old arms embrace and call you sons. For by the honor of my father's house, I'll part my estate most equally betwixt you.
Sir, you are most noble.
And flourish of trumpets. Enter Edol with drum and colours, Oswald bearing the standard, Tocleo the shield, Tocleo I still don't think says anything, with the red dragon pictured in them, two bishops with the crown, Prince Uter, Merlin, Artesia bound, and guard and clown.
Get up our shield and standard, noble soldiers. We have firm hope that, though our dragons sleep, Merlin will us and our fair kingdom keep.
As his uncle lives, I warrant you.
Sorry. Happy restorer of the Britons' fame, uprising sun, let us salute thy glory. Ride in a day perpetual about us, and no night be in thy throne's zodiac. Why do we stay to bind those princely brows with this imperial honour?
Stay, noble Gloucester. That monster first must be expelled our eye, or we shall take no joy in it.
If that be hindrance, give her quick judgment and send her hence to death. She's long deserved it.
Let my sentence stand for all. Take her hence and stake her carcass in the burning sun till it be parched and dry, and then flay off her wicked skin and stuff the pelt with straw to be shown up and down at fairs and markets. 2d apiece to see so foul a monster will be a fair monopoly and worth the begging.
Ha, ha, ha.
Dost laugh, Ericto?
Yes, at thy poor invention. Is there no better torture-monger?
Burn her to dust.
Ah, that is a phoenix death, and glorious.
Aye, that's too good for her.
Alive she shall be buried, circled in a wall. Thou murderess of a king, there, starved to death.
Then I'll starve death when he comes for his prey. And in the meantime, I'll live upon your curses.
Aye, 'tis diet good enough. Away with her!
With joy, my best wishes is before. The brothers poisoned. But I wanted more.
Exit Artesia with guards, presumably.
Why does our prophet Merlin stand apart, sadly observing these our ceremonies, and not applaud our joys with thy hid knowledge? Let thy divining art now satisfy some part of my desires, for well I know 'tis in thy power to show the full event that shall both end our reign and chronicle. Speak, learned Merlin, and resolve my fears, whether by war we shall expel the Saxons, or govern what we hold in beauteous peace in Wales and Britain.
Long happiness attend Pendragon's reign. What heaven decrees, fate hath no power to alter. The Saxons, sir, will keep the ground they have, and by supplying numbers still increase till Britain be no more. So please your grace, I will, in visible apparitions, present you prophecies which shall concern succeeding princes, which my art shall raise, till men shall call those times the latter days.
Do it, my Merlin, and crown me with joy and wonder.
Merlin strikes. Halt, boys. Enter a king in armour, his shield quartered with 13 crowns. At the other door enter diverse princes, who present their crowns at his feet and do him homage. Then enters Death and strikes him. He, growing sick, crowns Constantine exeunt.
This king, my lord, presents your royal son, whom in his prime of years shall be so fortunate that 13 several princes shall present their several crowns to him. And all kings else shall so admire his fame and victories that they shall all be glad, through fear or love, to do him homage. But Death, who favours neither weak nor valiant in the midst of all his glories, soon shall seize him, scarcely permitting him time to appoint one in all his purchased kingdoms to succeed him.
Thanks to our prophet for this so wished for satisfaction, and hereby now we learn that always fate must be observed, whatever that decree. All future time shall still recall this story of Merlin's learned worth and Arthur's glory.
And they exit. So we get a resolution of sorts to the C plot. We never see the sisters again, but they are mentioned rather a lot at the beginning of the scene as they sort of tie up those loose ends. And Donobert sort of gets some adopted sons, not sons-in-law, but sons adoptive. So that's sort of fine. And then we get someone buried alive. So that's always a lovely way to close a play. That's always cheerful. The brothers poisoned, but I wanted more. Please, sir, can I have some more? Yeah, that's dramatic. And then we get this dumb show at the end of, King Arthur and struck down by death, which is very morality playish. In fact, it goes all the way back to morality plays as a sort of image. It goes back to Pride of Life and Castle of Perseverance and all of that jazz. So that's a tradition a few hundred years old even at this point. So that's it's an interesting one. Thus ends the play, and I think it's continuing that theme we were discussing earlier of that shift to something with just a little bit more heft. A bittersweet ending. It says you're going to have a very successful son. It's all going to turn a bit to after that, but it's going to be successful for a while. There is no such thing as absolute success because, of course, the country will change underneath you as it will become less British and more eventually English. So yeah, it's an interesting way to close the play. Thoughts on that final scene? I'm waffling away, waiting for someone to wave. Nobody does. Simon.
I think it's a bit of a downer, to be honest. I was like when the for all intents and purposes evildoer of the play manages to argue herself into the best possible scenario for her destruction, in my opinion, with some of those awful things. She's kind of won anyway. I think the highlight of that ending is her being argued away from being burned to death or flayed. Good job. But yeah, I kind of left me a little bit, oh, great, we're all screwed.
It's interesting that actually there are only two on-stage sort of deaths. There's one, stone falls on the head, and demon is captured in stone again. There are two stones involved. The demon isn't necessarily killed, it's just at least trapped. But all these other deaths, all these kings, etc., they're all off-stage deaths. And I think that, I say, that's an attempt by the playwright to generally keep the stage bloodless. It doesn't want to feel like a tragedy. In that sense, and I think it almost works. But I don't have a problem with the ending being a bit bittersweet. I think that's a perfectly acceptable journey. Just as long as we know that's where we're starting, that's where we're ending in our production for the end point. Other thoughts on this ending? Sarah.
It is a bit of a downer. It didn't end where I was expecting it to end, not least just because, I mean, all the Arthur stuff, to me it seems weird that that's the aspect of Arthur's reign that the play chooses to dwell on at the end. It's like, yeah, but he's going to get struck down, early in his prime, and yeah, it's all going to go to hell. I just find that really fascinating. But I'm wondering if that's because I'm coming at it with a modern sensibility where, all the versions of Arthur that I've read, they do kind of fudge his death slightly. And it's like, oh, well, it goes all mystical and he gets taken off to Avalon. And does he really die? Oh, well, yeah, but, let's just soften it out a bit. And the myths these days, they tend to focus on the glorious aspect of his reign, and then shroud the death in this kind of mystery and magic. Whereas here, it's just like, yeah, no, he's going to be a really good king, but then he's going to die really young, and that's kind of quite unusual for me. But I think maybe it wasn't then. Maybe that was the version of Arthur that was more familiar then. I do think it could be mitigated slightly as well with just the sheer spectacle of the scene. So you could keep all the bittersweetness of the lines. And I actually really enjoyed that ending of Uter having the last word, saying, yeah, well, you've just got to live your life and take your fate kind of thing. But then you set that against, a really gorgeous dumb show with lots of, heraldry and pageantry and all the rees, and that's going to kind of balance out, I think, the fact that the audience might be a bit like, oh well, bit of a downing ending. It's like it's just going to give it a bit of pizzazz at the end.
I should also point out that Edol, as ever, is a delight in this final scene of just kill her, just kill her. You should have killed her ages ago. Didn't I say just kill her now? We could have been saved all these problems if you just listened to me in Act 2, or whenever I think it was Act 2 when he went off on one first. So yeah. It's a really interesting show. This play is sort of sticking with me a lot more than I was expecting. I was expecting something that was just going to be very silly all the way through and be a really fun production to play with. But it really does ring the changes rather a lot. We've got fight scenes, but as I think Brian put in the chat, nobody dies in those fight scenes. They're just fight scenes. So you get fight scenes, you get the excitement, but you don't get the blood. You get people, dragged off, admittedly, to be but maybe she escapes, who knows. It's not a part of the mythology that I have any memory of whatsoever. it's nodding a bit back to the earlier kings of Britain, who, of course, the narrative of the story there is always don't split up the kingdom, everything will go horribly, horribly wrong, and everyone will die. This is a slightly different narrative because it's about joining the kingdom back together and pulling stuff together. So yeah. Okay. Any more thoughts on the closing of the play before we go into the final thoughts about the play itself? I'm seeing no one waving, so I will wade in. I think this has got huge amounts of potential. You know, it's doing a lot of things. There's a real question in my mind about that C plot with the two daughters, but you know, I'm weirdly, even though it's very tokenistically thrown in at the end, I'm not actually sure I'd excise it. I kind of think it has a thematic unity with the rest of the play, even if it doesn't really go anywhere. And yeah, it managed to keep most of those plates spinning. I wouldn't say I wouldn't trim it. I wouldn't say I wouldn't make all sorts of interventions on it. But I think you do need to spend some money on it, though. This isn't one to say, let's bring it down to 3 people and a box and put it on. No, you need to do a bit of spectacle here. There's music, there's thunder, there's special effects. It's got lots of potential there. But I say, yeah, it has this sort of affecting ending at the end that I actually do feel weirdly moved, even though none of these characters have for most of the play any right to our sense of sadness, because they're also weirdly cardboard cutout. But it's been a really fun ride. Yeah, so thoughts about what our version might be, what we might do with this. I think go large, but other thoughts are available. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I must admit, I'm just wondering whether this is a public theatre response to the masks. Because there's so much in the way of special effects, the dragons, the thunder, the lightning, the opening rock, the dragon fights, you know, all of those bits which do seem to relate to the mask, which I think was probably somewhere near its peak about this time.
Well, yes, yes, there is, and there is a bleeding of mask culture, as it were, into public theatres. I think we should also be very careful that this kind of spectacle has existed since the 1580s, 90s. You know, we've seen it. We've seen stars in the firmament. We have seen dragons. We have seen all of these elements before. They are not new. That isn't to say that they're not influenced by the kind of spectacle you're seeing in those other spaces and for very private audiences. But I think we've got to remember that spectacle has always been part of the public stage. It's a bit of a myth that these are not visual spaces. Anyway, back to our production. Any more on productions or options that we might go for? Any on that, Alan?
Well, I was just thinking I can visualize ways that you could do the special effects in the modern day. How they would have contrived them at the time is a moot point. It would have required a considerable degree of ingenuity to make those effects at least halfway credible. You know, having a marching army, yeah, that's not a problem. You just provide enough bodies to wander across the stage in order. But some of the other stuff struck me as being rather more technically difficult to achieve without spending quite a bit of ingenuity and cash on it.
And it's for the curtain stage as well, so which we have a reasonable idea of what it was like in its latter days of its use as a performance venue. So it's an interesting space for which to imagine this play on. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yes, I'm not usually a fan of video projection, but I think you could use it to great effect here. And I was taken with the even though that was a bit of a downer as well, because he's like, yeah, you're going to repent, you're going to sigh, and then you're going to die, and then I'm going to build Stonehenge for you. But Merlin's little little vision of creating Merlin's bower for Joan and it being Stonehenge, I suddenly was just struck by an image. You could have Stonehenge there. You could sort of have him conjuring it and it appearing on a video screen, and then you could actually have Constantia and Modestia there at Stonehenge, like kneeling or sort of like looking mystical, and like they're waiting for Joan to be her handmaidens to the afterlife. And I'm thinking that could be quite a nice way of tying that plot up. I know, it says, they go to a nunnery, but it's like, actually one of the things I find really interesting about this play is the way the paganism and the Christianity is just kind of all muddled in together. I kind of really like that. I'm surprised at it for a play from this era, but I think it would actually lend itself quite well to a modern day audience, just because it seems to me to be more interested in good versus evil than it is about Christianity versus good Christianity versus the evil pagans. Some of the pagans are actually brilliant, and some of the Christian sentiment that's in the play is kind of some of the stuff that's a bit of a downer, or maybe that's just me interpreting it through my particular filter. I don't know, but it just seems to me that this is not necessarily about Christianity versus paganism. It's about good versus evil, but it's not even about good versus evil in that traditional black and white sense. It's about how light and dark coexist, and the devil is a character. He turns out to be this. The final scene, that's quite a dark, devilish scene for him. But early on, he's actually one of the most emotionally intelligent characters in the play. So, and then and it's about darkness and evil within one person. I mean, Joan isn't an evil person at any point, but she does go on this journey, and she talks about Helen said she talks about how she's changed, and Merlin acknowledges that he comes from evil. He's the spawn of the devil, and he's going to sort of work for the good. So I think the way the play treats these themes is actually it's weirdly interesting and complex for a play that on the surface is such a kind of daft, fun play. But I think there's all kinds of interesting elements that you could pull out, and I think it would actually work really well for a modern audience.
Yeah, there is a very atmospheric moment that can be built about that building of Stonehenge, and especially if he's literally moving stones through magic or whatever. And it's just always interesting that this is something that is acknowledged even then as this ancient monument that is something that we should be talking about. Helen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I've been fascinated by the Arthurian legend, not the Arthurian legend, the Lancelot and Guinevere and all the rest of it, but the earliest stuff, the Merlin stuff. In the chat, there was some mention of books by Mary Stuart, fiction, which are extraordinarily good, about the Merlin legend. And I would really like to know where it comes from, what its antecedents were, though we're not going to find any of that out from this play, which is quite a different fish. Personally, if I was doing it, I would cut the daughters entirely, excise them, take a knife to their lines, cut them out entirely, and I do not think they would be missed. I don't think that I cannot see that they add a new dimension to it. I mean, it's always a shame to cut female speaking characters, especially characters who are making their own, female characters who are making their own minds up. On the other hand, without a decent finish to the subplot, I really wouldn't have it.
It's definitely an option. I mean, I was definitely thinking that yesterday, when I sort of realised that actually they don't turn up again, and I've sort of reversed ferret on that a bit, because however slightly tokenistic, especially with Sarah's idea that that you associate them explicitly with Joan at the end. But you could remove them. They are utterly removable. They do not serve a structural function in the play. They serve a thematic. They are not there to intersect with the other plot lines particularly, or move any of those things. But they are thematically linked. But yes, you could do it, and I think that would get the running time down so you can put more special effects in. We really didn't talk about that blazing star enough, did we? Fireworks, explosions. Let's burn the theatre down. Let's do that thing. Brian, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I too was wrapped up in Arthurian stuff as back in high school, and was reading Mary Stuart and T.H. White and trying to find copies of Geoffrey of Monmouth and see if I could enjoy it. I think, though, that the Arthurian legend for Americans is largely Arthur, Lancelot, and Guinevere. And I think on this side of the ocean, the sweep of history that follows from it and the sense of national identity would not play as well. I don't know that that part of this would succeed as well on an American stage, is my guess. That's just one observation. There are some Anglophilic antiquarian academic people, nerds, for whom this would probably work pretty well. One of the most helpful things I've heard in our discussions is Helen's remark about the history and the Jacobean project, and the sense of viewing, trying to incorporate the identity of different parts of the Isles and acknowledge them all in one piece of unified work. And that has stuck with me. And I think that actually relates a little bit, perhaps thematically or in parallel, if not logically, to the things Sarah was talking about, the kind of eclecticism of its morals, that it incorporates, biblical and classical, Christian and pagan, without wanting to draw a strong distinction that one's good and one's bad. And maybe the Britons and the Saxons are a little like that in this play too. There's one side winning, there's praise, there's loss, there's virtue, there's villainy. But it's just history. They're all mingled together, and we're all part of the same story. I think that is definitely part of that explains to me some things that didn't make sense at first. And it made me compare this, not because it's the natural comparison, but because it's the last play I read with you all, to Fortune by Land and Sea, which also organizes itself around a notion of fate. And you get to the end, and fortune is the main thing that happened. There were reversals, and people had good things and bad things and surprises. Here, though, that is a much richer theme than it was in that play. And it's richer partly because fortune, or fate in this case, is part of what mingles all these elements. They're all together in the world. And that fate is given direct voice by the Hermit and by Merlin, so it gets articulated better. And it's responded to by both Vortiger and Uter, who say things about how they have to accept their fate, and probably other characters too, but those come to mind. And having got through those, I think those are most of the points I was going to make. Those are the main things. Although having got through that, I agree the daughters are quite tangential to all that, and they may add by contrast and reflection some comments on or views of Joan or about Christian morals, but not very directly. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually just interesting just talking about, what part of the Arthurian legends do we take in? I think we take in the existence of Merlin and a sort of vague sense of some stuff happening beforehand. But I think it's most of the things about Merlin from this sort of area of his birth and etc. is always a project where someone invents some additional stuff around it. So I think you're right. The center of gravity is always Arthur, Camelot, Lancelot, etc. I think it's almost as weird here, actually, the what this play is doing, because you're constantly wanting to hold on to something, and actually you can't, because it's not the elements that you really have embedded. They just know little flanging edges to it. Simon, you're only here for this session, so you're presumably totally lost. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, lots. It's very hard to follow Brian's wonderful conclusions there, because that covered everything. But But yeah, a couple of things that kind of strike me. I disagree entirely that it would be expensive to put on, because you have a big cast. My usual style, anyway, physicalization. You can transport anyone anywhere, even the rocks falling. As you know, is a perfectly valid and popular style percussion, a dumb show, a look up, and then a mime, there's a rock being fallen on your head. And perhaps the fights, as you alluded to, are off stage, because it keeps the stage clear for a lot of that fast-paced physical business. So that's point one. I think it would work very well as an incredibly fast-paced, very physical extravaganza. And secondly, I think the fact that there's been so many different conclusions, and this speaks to an awful lot of different people in different ways, says what okay, maybe not perfectly structured, but good piece it is, because there's so much you can glean from it, so much potential symbolism, and also Merlin and the Arthurian legends, as we've touched on, tend to kind of come up when people are trying to draw analogies or make reference to a halcyon period. And it's interesting that this isn't that. It's the birth of it all. I think there's a lot to take from it, and I enjoyed it. What involvement I had.
Yeah, I mean, you know, let's always remember that a large cast is of itself moderately extensive. But also the option of saying, actually, this might be quite fun for schools. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it too weird for schools? I don't know. But I'd be quite curious about that as a way of putting it on. Connor, you've been here for 2 sessions, but you missed the opening. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm confused. Just kind of, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I like the idea of schools doing it though. Yeah, that'd be quite funny. Like a nativity play, just completely over the top. Kids just running around all over the place. I don't know. Or the dragons. That'd be quite fun.
I mean, at least the youngest boy is Merlin. It's, you know,
Yeah.
or girl if you want. How you want to cast it. But you know, then the older students could be the more prominent roles. Stephen, you have also been here for 2 sessions and were completely bewildered last time, I believe. Is greater clarity come to you?
Yeah, greater clarity, but perhaps not greater connection. I still remain a bit detached from the matter of the thing. I think there are too many people, too many characters, too much chopping and changing, and I'm not that invested in the subject matter, you know. So I don't really have anything to add about the play. I've been going down some sort of theatre history rabbit holes instead. So the only thing I would say, I suppose, is back to the spectacle point that so many people have been making, is it's quite expensive to produce the sort of bespoke elements in here. You know, there's you know, the history plays of the 90s, which are big. It feels like a public theatre play, doesn't it? Feels like a big play, but you know, you've got a shield with 13 crowns or whatever. Well, you can't use that in anything else, you know. So then you've got to go to the expense of repurposing and so forth. What are you going to do with the rock, you know? So that sort of sounds like, you know, somebody's thought it was worth investing in. Somebody's, you know, this. He's quite an eminent writer at this point. He goes off and joins the King's Men pretty quickly after this. There's the name on the title page, blah de blah, of the supposed co-author, all of which sort of indicate that he's a good bet, and that this is, you know, this kind of Marvel films sort of take. You know, what you're going to get here is a lot of money spent on this, a lot of thought put into the spectacle, never seen before on the British stage, and so on and so forth. So I suppose that's a way of me saying, you know, as a script, I'm just kind of imagining what, you know, J.J. Abrams or somebody would do with it, which is another version of the nativity play, isn't it? Connor's point.
Well, yeah, and the point about spending money on it, presumably, if the clown is the draw, because it does feel like the play is centered around several clown set pieces that maybe the audience is really into. Maybe that justifies the expense of the other stuff as well. That might be part of the element.
Yeah, it could explain as well the sort of size of the clown role, because they're often. I mean, often the clown gets sort of disposed of before the end, and the clown is sort of hanging on here, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I did like the way he slightly undercut the portentousness of that scene that he was in at the end as well. But then we still had room for genuine sort of atmosphere when we got to those last two predictions that come in later on. So there's options there. Eric, you missed the middle of the play, so I don't know how that worked for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of similar things that we've read, like sort of, and felt a bit. Well, this is kind of not because we've read plays where the ending feels a bit like a downer, but not quite. So I'm wondering if it's kind of, if it needs to be done at pace just to see, or like picked apart obviously and then done at pace. I don't know, just sort of, I'm not as eloquent as anybody else at the moment. My brain is a bit dead. But yeah. I was wondering, like, plays like when it's the birth of a character and you get that character in the second half is kind of strange, because usually you get like the title character you'd think is at least it gets most of the play. Merlin doesn't get that much to say compared to other people, though he does have a lot of plot to deliver. Uter, it seems to be Uther's story more than anything else, or like how he becomes king, which is kind of, Aurelius then Uther, so maybe the dynasty, I don't know, if you want to go that way, which I find interesting, and also kind of, because, like, for example, we've had plays like I don't know, the Birth of Hercules, or whenever we read any of the End Town plays, and you've got like the birth of Jesus Christ or whatever, all that, so the mystery cycles, all that stuff. It kind of seems to be like those where, okay, we know what's going to happen, we know the future events of this, so why is this play important, and why would you stage it? I mean, obviously we would stage it because it's interesting, and
because it is there. We're staging everything, so it doesn't matter. We don't need a reason.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, which is kind of cool, but I mean, it's also just sort of, you could have it as an origin story, like so many other cinematic universes. You've got like the Avengers Assemble sort of stuff. So if you really want to go full on for like the Arthurian legends and all that, then you could start from here, or you could go all the way to like through all the brute plays if you want to do that, or whatever.
We don't have a lot of Arthur plays, and they don't quite all link together, which is a shame. I wish there were more survivors so that we could do a
we did have
season.
One with Guinevere though, which is quite fun.
We had the Misfortunes of Arthur, we've got this, and I think there are a few other sort of slightly tangential things, but I don't think we've got a sequence in a particularly practical way, which is very frustrating. Lynn, I don't think I've come to you. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I agree with you, Rob, that it's a fun ride. That's true. At the same time, I have been thinking about and perhaps a little troubled by the way the play handles gender. And not just the women, I'll get to them in a second. But, Edol, we agree, Edol is hilarious. I mean, I'll fight you, but it's sort of, I'm not sure how I feel about making toxic masculinity funny. Maybe I just, the old joke, it's, about feminists having no sense of humor. Maybe that's my problem. But yeah, there's Edol, this sort of comic manly man. And Uter Pendragon, this play seems to be quite concerned to rehabilitate Uter. He's a rapist, remember? But we're just going to kind of like push that. We're not going to talk about it in those terms. Uther's the father of Arthur. That's who he is. So, and the women. And I noticed that in a way, the women all have the same fate. They're isolated from society and they kind of waste away. I mean, even if you cut the daughters, Merlin tells Joan to go basically live alone and you know, be alone with her thoughts, and she's just gonna kind of languish, but he'll build this great monument to her. And Artesia, they're gonna starve her, they're gonna isolate her and starve her to death. So in a way, like, Joan and Artesia have these parallel fates where they're isolated from society and they just sort of gradually disappear. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I find that really quite noticeable. So I think your production, as fun as it might be, needs to grapple with that, needs to grapple with the fact that the women basically are made to withdraw from society and gradually disappear.
Well, I think I mean there are elements there. I mean the two sisters. I mean that's what they choose to do. It's not that there is a decision there. I mean, Joan's journey is a very interesting, because we were worried. You know, the problem with Joan at the beginning, that first scene is quite toxic with the clown. It's very well structured, but it's pushing a lot of buttons that probably don't land very well. But then Joan has this arc and does all these things, and is it fully joined together, and is the ending sort of tacked on, and what do we do with that final speech with Merlin and her, you know, before the whole I'm going to build a tomb for you element. So yeah, I don't disagree. I think there are a lot of questions about what to do with this text, because I say it seems weirdly there's a lot more to it than it looks like there is, and it's really weird that way. And it's the shallows that we were paddling through in the first session. It's sort of end up still being shallow, but feeling like there's a cumulativeness to everything in the end. And I think that speaks to your point about, you know, what the play is actually doing in terms of roles and things. And you know, Edol doesn't have to necessarily be you know, where we've pushed it. We could be wrong. I suspect we're right, but we could be wrong. And you know, asking an actor to give it weight as opposed to play it for laughs may change that. I think there's a lot more to say about this play, but sadly we've totally run out of time. There will, I'm sure, one day be a return to The Child Hath Found His Father, as it putatively is originally called, which in many ways makes more sense as a title, as a through line, than The Birth of Merlin. But Merlin has been born, and stuff's going to go down later in the story. If you'd like to join us for any of these sessions, you can always join us. There are sign-up forms on our website, beyondshakespeare.org, in the page that is devoted to that, which has a name. I can't remember off the top of my head what wording I use on the page, but it'll be very obvious. It'll be, you know, exploring sessions or join us or something like that. And you can join us, and it's free and open to anyone. You just pop in and join us, so you too can read a play with us, rather than just watching it or listen to this online if you so desire. But if you do not desire, that is also entirely fine. No one is making you do any of those things. So all that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Methinks I see something like a peeled onion.